The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Are you tired of being misguided by self-serving financial service profit seekers? Are you looking for a better way to take control of your destiny and create a financially free path for future generations? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Banking on Your Retirement podcast. We cut through the noise of the often self-serving financial markets with simplified yet foundational financial principles for creating a more peaceful, joyful, and prosperous life. So be brave and be free. This is your home. Now, here's your Banking on Your Retirement host, Johnnyward.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming back. Johnnyward, host of your Banking on Retirement podcast, and I want to jump right in here and talk about what we're going to share today. I'm going to start off with some commentary, but just let you know what we're going to talk about after that. And I want to introduce you to a gentleman named Gary Allan. Allan with an E-N, not an A-N, like the country music star. So don't be confused. He was a guy that I believe he passed away in 1980 or something like that at 50 years old. But he was a historian, and I think he's pretty relevant to what's going on and has been going on for a long, long time in this country and across the globe. And the power that the elites have been wielding on unsuspecting citizens and other humans. So I want to start with that, and then I'm going to share a story that he wrote about the Hunt brothers. And the Hunt brothers are known for supposedly cornering, or at least attempting to corner, which means take total control, monopolize something, and cornering the silver market. And so we're going to tie that in, and we're going to tie in some of the research that Gary has done with his 9 different books. So I did want to start with some commentary, and it really plays into the whole mission of this channel, of what I'm trying to, express today. And it's happened to me, and that is, this focus on rates of return. And no matter what we do, once we go into a market and we're letting that product or stock or bond or what have you, or silver or gold, whatever we invest in, and it has a daily price, we're watching it. And if the price is going up, we're just as obsessed with the fact that it could go down. And so we're kind of in a mania in our own minds. And so when I talk about the Liberty Dollar, and I even talk about their term deposit account, which will pay you in silver 1% per month. Hey, I'm talking about rates of return too, right? 12% a year. And I think it's something that we should talk about, in that we really want to be thinking about what kind of interest, not the return of your capital in profits, but what interest do you have in what you're investing in? What is that? Is it about, I love the idea behind what Bitcoin was supposed to be, and I am picking on them, but I would ask the audience, I'd love comments. Is it about making money, or is it about that it was supposed to be a decentralized control of the money supply, right? It was freedom. And, I hear people talking about, I should own some Bitcoin, or everybody should own a little bit. And maybe that is a hedge against the de-dollarization, of the devaluing of the US dollar. But do you really do it because of that, or is it really because I don't want to miss out? I want to invest in things that everybody else is talking about. And so I've heard people have made a lot of money doing this, so that's the reason I'm doing it. That is just an example of why you want to think about what it is you're actually investing in, who it is that you're investing in. So I've talked about that a little bit in the past, but I do want to make that part of the thinking behind this show, and really what we can do to better humanity and society and make everybody free. And so thank you for letting me talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to jump into an article that you see on your screen that was actually an interview of, they're calling him a popular historian, Gary Allen. And I would question, does anybody even know who this guy is? And they're saying he's popular. Popular when? I'll tell you, he'd probably be, have his First Amendment rights taken away if he was talking about this stuff today, because of the control the media seems to have over what they think is truth and what they think is potentially just somebody, fear-mongering or speculating. And, I took let's see if I can find it quick enough here. I found something about Gary where they said in his Wikipedia, and I'm not going to probably get my fingers on it fast enough here, but they said he was like a promoter. Oh, okay, here it is. This is the beginning of Frederick Gary Allen, again with an E-N, was an American conservative writer. Allen promoted the notion that international banking and politics control domestic decisions, taking them out of the elected officials' hands. Was it just that language, right, that they use, that he promoted this idea? No, he researched this idea, and he documents it. He's written 9 books. I own one of the books that he wrote, and it's called The Rockefeller File. And the Rockefeller name is synonymous with money, right? Power. People might not really know much about the family, but I'll tell you, it's such a great name. It just captures you. But on the back of the book, they chose one quote from the patriarch, the starter of this powerful family, John D. Rockefeller Sr. And the quote says, "Competition is sin." All right. So back to this idea of what I talked about, and I'm going to bounce around a little bit, but this idea that the Hunt brothers cornered the silver market, were attempting to corner it, which means they were trying to be able to have so much of the silver under their control that they had a monopoly and that they could move the price wherever they wanted to move it. And that was pretty scary for some of the, politicians and people that maybe called the elite and that were trying to run the world, which, of course, the Rockefellers were part of. And so one of the things I just want to notate is that Gary, in this interview, which I'll have in the show notes, there'll be a link to the story, he gets into a section where they're talking about the Council on Foreign Relations, and they're also talking about the Trilateral Commission, which we don't have to get into the details because you can read it. But there's a section in a book written by Professor Carol Quigley. It's called Tragedy and Hope, and it was a history of the first half of the 20th century. And about 100 pages into that 1,450 pages, he got into the discussion of international banking, and that really blew things up a bit in the circles of power. And so the interviewer asked what was so special about the Quigley study. And Gary answers, Professor Quigley was part of the Council on Foreign Relations elite. He came to the group via Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and the Georgetown School of Foreign Service. And he was so trusted that he was given access to the archives of the Council of Foreign Relations. Quigley reached the conclusion, based on archival material, that the international banking community was manipulating not only the great corporations to which it made loans and whose stock it held, but also the foreign and domestic policies of the U.S. government. It's only a 3-page interview. People that are interested in history, I think would like the details in there. I love Gary in that he was bold. He put himself out there. This book, The Rockefeller File, sorry, I'm not putting it on the screen, was written in 1976. And just, I haven't read it recently, but I do always tell people that back in 1976, they owned a controlling interest. The Rockefellers owned a controlling interest in most of the household name banks, the biggest banks in the world. They had family members on the boards of various, flip-flopping between each other's corporate boards. They owned 4% of Pfizer back in 1976. So if you can get a hold of this book, or if you want to borrow it from me, reach out and I can share it with you. So it's not easy to find anymore. And so I do want to move on to this idea of the Council on Foreign Relations, and we're going to pull up a couple clips here from the John Birch Society website, and it was a story about exposing the deep state, and it's just going to be a couple clips here to get you realizing how much power this Council of Foreign Relations has on our lives. So we're going to run the first clip here.
And to get a sense of just how influential this group is, let's listen briefly to Hillary Clinton while she was serving as Secretary of State.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the Council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the Council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
So there you heard it, straight from the horse's mouth. No insult intended to horses, but she made very clear that she gets her orders from the Council on Foreign Relations. They tell her how she should think about the future. It's pretty amazing, right? But certainly that's only the Democrats, right, who hate America and want to, kill babies with abortions and.
Yeah. So, she did, hey, these people usually choose their words pretty carefully. They're on film, they're being recorded, and she's saying straight up that, basically taking our orders, we're being given direction by the Council on Foreign Relations. And it's a who's list of the politicians, the corporate leaders, so to speak, the big corporate conglomerates. They're all part and members of this Council of Foreign Relations based out of New York City, as she said, but now there's a site or satellite site in D.C., so makes it a shorter walk for Hillary. And and as he said, it's not just a side of the aisle that you're choosing here. This isn't politics for me. It's not telling you pick, Democrat or Republican, because to me, they're both the same. They're part of the same family. And so we're going to run a second clip just to prove that point.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
Just kidding, it wasn't Darth Vader, right? That was Dick Cheney, the vice president under Republican President George W. Bush.
Yep. So that to me is, it's always they're having so much fun with each other and chit-chatting about this stuff. But, why wouldn't he mention this to his constituents, right? Because they don't shine a light on this group. I mean, there's very few people that I ever talk to that know anything about the Council on Foreign Relations. And to dig into this and find out what sheer power these people have. And so this comes back and ties into the Rockefellers, and we're going to run one more clip here.
CFR for more than 15 years, and then he defected and blew the whistle. He said a lot of stuff. He actually wrote a book, Kissinger on the Couch. I highly recommend you get a copy. He said the main purpose of the Council on Foreign Relations is promoting the disarmament of U.S. sovereignty and national independence. He said the goal is submergence of the United States into an all-powerful one-world government. This lust to surrender the sovereignty and independence of the United States is pervasive throughout most of the membership.
Well, I do want to read what was on the screen for those that are just listening through audio. And they have a picture of David Rockefeller. Now, David Rockefeller was one of the children of John D. Rockefeller. And he was a longtime chairman of the J.P. Morgan Chase. It was about 15 years. And he's not shying away from saying that he wants to take control of the world. And he was very influential, obviously, in the Council on Foreign Relations. Here's the quote. "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, categorizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that is the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it." That is in his memoir. That is powerful. And I am trying to show people that there's some more digging that we have to do into our own history, and that we want to find ways to separate ourselves from this world, and that is in taking control of the monetary system, because that is where the power lies. With that said, I think we're going to take a quick break and hear a little bit about Liberty Dollar, and we'll be back and talk more about the Hunt brothers.
Have you heard about Liberty Dollar Financial Association? Liberty Dollar is a private membership association that allows its members to purchase silver in different forms, which are lawful for use as mediums of exchange. Liberty Dollar Financial Association is a private alternative currency that is provided to members in both digital and paper warehouse receipts. They also sell physical Liberty coins for your personal possession, or they'll securely store your precious metals for you. They provide members with various services that allow them to use their silver's value as a means of exchange, such as their bill pay service, where they will pay your bills out of your silver account, similar to your current banker. Additionally, they offer a term deposit investment account where currently they are paying out in silver a guaranteed 1% per month, which can be compounded over a 1-year term. Liberty Dollar just celebrated 25 years as a silver bullion dealer, storage facility, and exchange. To learn more about Liberty Dollar Financial Association or to become a free member, visit ldrep.nl/BOYR. That's Liberty Dollar Financial Association.
All right, welcome back. I want to say a little bit about the T-shirt that I'm wearing today. I was flying a few years ago, probably half a dozen now. And I don't know, it popped up on my screen in my algorithms as an ad. And there was a mug that you could purchase, and there was this T-shirt, and I did order both. And I was a big fan of the Rifleman when I was a kid. I felt connected to his son. his young son. So he was a widower, and he was not the sheriff of his town, but he did conduct law and order. He was the one that was willing to step up, and he was about justice. He was about the good. And he knew there was some bad actors in the world, and in his little community that would ride into his community, and he had to step up. And I'm not really going to compare the Hunt brothers to Lucas McCain, actor Chuck Connors, but I do look at them as they were heroes. They did make a fatal mistake, I believe, and I'll address that. But I want to talk about this story that it be in the show notes, that I think everybody would be interested in reading, that has any interest in what's going on in the precious metals market and this long told story that the Hunt brothers tried to corner the market as if they were bad guys that made the price run up, made the price drop. It's really far from the truth, and they are just used as the symbol of greed, even though theirs was not about the greed. So I want to read a little bit about Nelson Bunker Hunt. He was the son of the billionaire H.L. Hunt, who made all his money in oil, and then many other companies after that, because that supported many other companies. Gary Allen writes this story, and he says about Nelson, that some people claimed he was like a villain, that he was like James Bond or a sinister schemer in the mold of a J.R. Ewing of the Dallas television series. He states he is in fact a happy combination of sober realist and idealistic visionary. He is a sober realist because he understands the perilous direction in which our civilization has been headed, the political instability, the civil turmoil, the financial catastrophe of hyperinflation, and moral bankruptcy. He goes on to say, and he is an idealistic visionary because he is working for a better world in which the people govern themselves and their economy without being victimized by a paper aristocracy which profits by manipulating government and inflating currencies. So I think that his vision was freedom. I know that his grandfather H.L. Hunt, he was not his grandfather, his father. He's got various reputations, but I think in the end, he wasn't as corrupt. He was about trying to free people. And you can dig into him too. There's some documentaries out there that I think are pretty interesting. But I look at, there was two brothers. There was Nelson Bunker Hunt, and then there was his brother Herbert. And they were together, wanting to shore things up, knowing that we had hyperinflation in the late 70s that was created by the Federal Reserve and then sort of tamed by the Federal Reserve. But really what happened was in 79, in 80, the Hunt brothers decided they wanted to own a lot of silver because they wanted to protect their empire, their wealth, because of the devaluing of the dollar. So they weren't trying to control it just because they thought, hey, we want to, have a monopoly on silver. No, we want to use real money. The flaw is that they got into the futures market, and the futures market is really supposed to be a protection. There's hog bellies and various things where farmers are trying to protect themselves in case they lose their crop, their animals, due to various things, disease, to weather. And so they wanted to hedge against, some of these things that might not be good for their business. But the silver market is so much, and so is gold and many commodities, is manipulated. And there's a lot more trading on paper than there is actually supporting product that's behind it. So to make a market, there's people that go long in the market, which means they're predicting that the price will continue to go up, and there's people that short the market who are predicting that the price will go down. And many times those who are shorting the market don't actually have the product. They can't deliver. And they're just speculating. It's clear that that's what they're doing still today in big ways. There isn't enough silver and gold sitting behind all these contracts that are traded on the futures market. But the short story, and again, this is in the show notes, you can grab this story called Hunt for Silver by Gary Allen, is the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, started to change the rules in the middle of the game towards the beginning of 1980, as we started to have a bull run in silver. And what they did was they started requiring people to have a bigger and bigger margin account, meaning that they have to have a bunch of money on reserve with their broker to cover any price, price fluctuations. And they kept, the CFTC kept raising the margin amounts. And what happens is people that own these contracts don't have the money to support this larger and larger margin dollar amount. So they're forced to sell. They also changed some rules where the only thing you could do was sell, but you couldn't buy. You couldn't go long. You could only, if you were already long, the only thing you could do was sell. So is Herbert Hunt is quoted as saying, it's like they changed the rules of a football game in the middle of the game. They basically, I'll read one of the quotes that he wrote, that he's people, equip him with. And that is, stumbling there. So basically he said that, it's like a football game going into the fourth quarter and the referees change the rules. And they basically say, only one team gets the ball, So when you can only, sell whatever you have, then there's a pressure. And if they're saying, hey, you need to give us X amount of dollars, otherwise, you're gonna have to sell your contract. So, they were telling, and there's different numbers that are bounced around, but they were telling the Hunt brothers, that you got to come up with, $100 and something million to cover your margins, or you got to start selling. So when everybody was getting pushed to sell, of course, now that changes the equation and everything, starts to drop, right? If there's all kinds of supply come into the market, then, there's not enough demand, then the price goes down. So the price did go up to $50 an ounce back in 1980, but by March of 1980, it had gone down to like $13 an ounce. And it was all because the CFTC, they had 23 members of the board of the CFTC. And they say that 9 of those board members, and there were some hearings done by Senator William Proxmire. He was the Senate Banking Committee chief. And he revealed that at least 9 of the 23 members of the Board of Governors of the COMEX, which is the Commodities Exchange, were holding enormous short positions, which would have required them to deliver more than 38 million ounces of silver bullion, worth about $1.9 billion in January of 1980. So these people were actually supposed to be in charge and making things fair for the public, and they were speculating in the market. They had gone short, and they were going to be exposed in a big way, and probably many would end up going bankrupt. But they changed all these rules that made the price come back down, put them back in the money, and many of them made a lot of money in the process. So this idea that the Hunt brothers were doing something negative, right, that was hurtful, cornering the market, like, hey, we're not going to have enough silverware, we're not going to have enough silver necklaces, Tiffany's, I guess, came out with a story in the newspaper the day before the market fell about 38% in the silver's futures market. And so, it's really something where it's a folklore, right? If you tell the story long enough, that it somehow, even if you don't understand what the story is, you start to believe that, I can feel the flavor of it. And, those Hunt brothers, I'm not sure what they were really up to. And so, I'm going to tie this story up. The thing for me is, if you want control of your freedom and in the monetary system, it's not about buying futures. It's about buying the actual silver or gold. And silver, the reason I focus on that with the Liberty Dollar is because it is something that can be taken back, the power of it, that the populace can corner this market. And if you have the control over the silver by buying silver, not just looking at the what kind of price movement, that, hey, I bought it at 20 and now it's 25, and we all do it. I do it. I look and I'm like, oh, but then I tell myself, but that's not really why I'm doing it. The real power behind this is that we will take back the control that others have over our lives, that they're going to always have these booms and busts, and there's going to be winners and there's losers. And most of the winners are on the high end of the scale. And I'm not about people not making money. I want people to have enough money. I want them to be secure. I want them to be at peace. And I feel that if we looked more at the idea behind why you're going to buy silver, it's not about, like I was talking about with Bitcoin. It's not about, hey, I want to, get my, my $1 million in the market. I want to hit the grand slam. No, the grand slam is freedom and peace and joy. And I say peace internally, peace amongst all men and women across the globe. We won't have all these wars, the wars over power and money. And if the people take back the control of the power of the money, and they can do it with silver, right? Because if we have control over that, There's so much that the corporations of the world cannot do unless we choose to let them use our silver, right? Because it is an industrial metal. That is the power. It's not just money for money's sake, for exchange, medium of exchange. No, we can take control over a metal that is so important in industry. And that is really where I'm at. I want you to be able to bank on your retirement. I want you to have a retirement. I want you to have the joy of that time, right? And part of that is you need to have your own banking system, right? And then you also want to invest in things that are good for society, that are good for all of us, not just chasing rates of return. So thanks for watching, listening this week. Please like, subscribe. I don't know, I'm trouble with talking today. Share the stories that I'm trying to share with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Johnnyward, Banking on Your Retirement. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Banking on Your Retirement podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Banking on Your Retirement. And don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks again for listening. The information expressed on this podcast is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Personal due diligence is the listener or viewer's sole responsibility.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.